looking forward to what you all are doing. I'm super excited to be a part of what you guys are doing. The mold that you all are building is a powerful thing. I've been watching how you guys have been collaborating. And I just want to applaud you. I'm watching you guys. I'm learning from you. I'm admiring you. So thank you for having me on.
Hey, this is Seth Yolorda.
Yo, what's going on? This is Pastor Noah Weinstein.
This is Pastor Tina Kerger.
I'm Pastor Sean Moss.
This is Pastor JD.
This is Pastor Kimberly Mann.
What's up, everybody? Pierre Quinn here, and you are watching Recharge.
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 Recharge. Recharge.
Recharge.
Recharge. Recharge.
Recharge. You are watching Recharge Worship.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Kyle, and we are here for another installment of Recharge Worship Survivor Series. Last week, we had my mom here to talk about her journey through breast cancer, and today I have a very special guest, one of my boys, one of my friends, man. He let me crash on his couch when we were in college, none other than Justin Bowers, who recently got married, and we celebrate that. Welcome to the married club, bro. But yo, we want to talk about breast cancer. We want to highlight the effects that it has, not just on people who go through it, but also on people who have to watch their loved one go through it. And that's kind of what we're talking about today. Listen, this month we talk a lot about people who have survived, and we want to honor them. But we also want to honor those who have lost their life to this disease. It is a debilitating disease. It's a draining disease. And listen, for the most part, like when we talked about last week, we talked about that even though black women get breast cancer at a lower rate than white women, they die at a higher rate than white women, right? And so for every breast cancer survivor, there is somebody who has lost their life to this disease. And so today we want to talk to just someone who has had to deal with that loss. My boy Justin, man, appreciate you for just coming through. Yeah. So I want to go ahead and just get started, man. Jump right into it. So the first question I want to ask you, bro, is just, how did you find out that your mom had breast cancer?
Man. You take me back to literally May 2006. I can still see the day. I just graduated high school. I had just finished driving back from Mississippi to Arizona, where we were living at that time. So I thought life was good. I was in the house with my baby sister. We're watching TV, and I remember my mom walking in with just this kind of solemn face. And she basically just kind of sat us both down and said, "Hey, I'd have a serious conversation with you. The cancer is back." Because the kicker is, this is the second time around. The first time she had it, she went through it with just her and my dad. I had no idea. My sister had no idea. None of her family had any idea. My mom went through the first battle basically by herself with just my dad to support her. But I distinctly remember her saying, "It's more aggressive this time, and I can't do this alone." So I'm 17. I'm sitting on the couch, kind of like blown. And I immediately remember getting up, hugging her tight, telling her, "We're going to get through this." And then I ran out the house. I couldn't be in that space in that moment because, again, I didn't really know what she went through the first time. So the second time, hearing that, and then my dad was deployed in Iraq at that time as well. So I'm trying to figure out now, what does my summer look like before I'm supposed to be heading off to college? I'm thinking I'm going to be having a good time. It's Arizona. I'm enjoying the weather, see some people, enjoy some things. And that shifted everything because now my priority was making sure that she had everything that she needed to be okay. But man, I kind of took a step back. My sister was 15, so she knew what was going on. But again, our mentalities were different then than what we are now. So it was a lot to process and try to figure out. And we really were just like, "Oh, we'll put a Band-Aid over it. Everything's going to be okay. There's nothing to worry."
Right. So I remember when my mom told me, right? My mom told me, and it's crazy that you said that, bro, that you had to get out of there. Because literally, bro, like my mom brought me back to California. It was the summertime. I'm thinking I'm coming home, man. I'm about to hang out with folk. And my mom told me, and it was like right after church, she told me, and bro, I cried, I broke down, and then I had that moment, like you said, we're gonna get through it. We gonna get through it. But then I left as well. You know what I'm saying? And I had to get out of there, and I went to hang out with some friends. And even though I was hanging out with them, I was all in my head, but I had to
Absolutely.
get out. So hearing you say that just kind of like it allowed me to say like, yo, that's okay. It's okay to feel that way.
And we're gonna get to that what you just said right there later on, but
Yeah,
it's definitely
yeah,
okay to feel that way. So yeah, man, I had to
yeah.
do it. Like the air just got thick. It was
Mm,
almost like I couldn't breathe. I had to be there to like let me hug, let me let you know that we got you. We're gonna support however we can. But
yeah,
once the release was going, I was like, it's I'm suffocating under what's happening. This is not what I expected. It's a blind side. So
yeah,
we'll think positive because again, up to that point, my life for the most part was cush. I
mm,
had my both parents in the home. There was no issues. Like I grew up very okay. So like this was the
mm,
toughest thing I'd ever heard. I'm like, oh well, you got through the first one. The second one's nothing. But in the back of my
right,
mind,
right.
I had a friend of mine I grew up with who I remember distinctly that he used to talk about his mom's battle the first time. And I distinctly remember sitting at her funeral after the second time came and took her and what he felt. And I was like, I wouldn't, this is crazy. I know you, I know her. So like,
Yeah,
it's wild to see that. So then me to fast forward 5, 6 years later and to be sitting in a situation where I'm now having to kind of deal with this is the second time around. And then I messed up and started Googling. I'm saying, okay, what's the second time statistics? And it just gets worse. So now I'm like, okay, it's my mom. She's superwoman. She's
yeah,
untouchable. She's done so much in her life. This is just
mm,
another notch in the belt. We'll knock this off. We'll add it to the kind of accolades. She beat this and we'll keep it going. That's what I thought.
wow, wow. So you know, okay, so you run out, man, and because I know you, man, I know we tend to internalize things. Um, it takes us a while to process
Oh, man.
certain things, right? Um, I want to ask you, man, just looking back on it, how would you say that like those emotions kind of played out or affected you?
Oh man, honestly, I'm almost kind of ashamed looking back at how those emotions played out in my actions. Because what
Mm,
ended up happening was I found myself never wanting to be at home.
wow.
I couldn't be in the
Yeah.
house.
Yeah.
Like, it got to where once I realized it, I was like, okay. And I would find any reason to be out the house and not have to look at her going through this process and kind
Wow.
of the way. Because my mom was a chameleon. You didn't know what was going on unless she actively told you. She wouldn't show you. She was the strongest woman I've ever known and ever seen. But
Yeah.
like those vulnerable moments, I would feel them. And I'm like, I can't be in the house. So I would literally get up and be out before the sun was up. And I wouldn't come
Mm,
home until I figured she was in the bed, about to be asleep, and not really like looking to have a conversation, just tired from the day, tired for what was going on because she worked the entire time.
oh
Up,
wow.
I'm talking up until she physically could not get out of the bed, and we had to like before we put her on the plane to go to Atlanta for treatment. She worked the
Yeah.
entire time. She was in the bed after chemo, signing documents for the hospital in pain, but
Wow.
never stopped moving forward. So like I couldn't
Wow.
watch that. I was
Yeah.
like, take a break, relax. Like you
Yeah.
have every excuse. Your job knows what's happening. They're understanding. Take a break. But she couldn't stop, and I
Wow.
that's kind of been passed down. So yeah, man, it was.
Yeah, I can
I
see
had to
that
get out,
now. I can
man.
see that now. Yeah.
I
Okay.
had to get out, man.
Yeah, yeah. So again, I think, and then this is great that we're having this conversation because it kind of goes into what my mom was saying in the last episode. She was talking about just how, treatment affects different people different ways. So she was talking about how, for her, she knows people that, as in your mom's case, where it's painful, but you're still able to push yourself to get up and go until you physically can't. And then there's the other one, like how she had it, where that thing just completely wipes you out. You can't
Take you
do
out.
anything. And so I do just kind of want to pause there for anybody who's dealing with it currently. Um, it's going to affect you different ways, right? Don't think that you have to be wiped out, and don't think that you have to be up on you and going to work. It's going to affect you just kind of how it affects you. And so for somebody listening who's saying, listen, I'm watching somebody go through it, or I know somebody who's going through it, I guess, what Justin is kind of saying, and it hits me a little different too. It's just like, sometimes you it's a lot to deal with somebody telling you that this is what they have, right? And having to leave, having to go somewhere else, having to do something else, it doesn't mean that you don't care. It's just kind of how you process. And my mom was kind of talking about it too, how like the reason there are support groups is because your family, the people closest to you,
You don't know
they
what to
don't
do.
always know what to do. Yeah, Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. Yeah, man.
Man, at all. And that's
Yeah.
that's the hard part, especially when it's family. And for me,
Mm-hmm.
being my mother, it's my dad's in Iraq. I'm
Yeah.
17. I'm the man in the house right now. And I don't know what to do to help you. I can't fix this. I can't make this better. It's a lot. The weight I put on myself that, I mean, 14 years later, I'm still carrying it to an
Yeah.
extent. I still feel it.
Yeah.
So, like,
Yeah.
I tell everybody, you're gonna have questions forever. Like, and a lot of times you're not gonna get the answer. You're not gonna know what to do. You can't go back and redo things. There's no right way to do it. It's
Mm-hmm.
you just have to walk and keep putting a foot in front of the other and find a way to get through it.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah. That's key, bro. That's major right there. That's good advice. So you said your mom continued to work and sign documents up until you guys physically put her on a plane to go get treatment. Kind of just talk about um, what treatment did she go through?
You know what's crazy? I couldn't tell you.
Wow.
And I say that, and I'm giving an example, give you a story. Throughout the entire summer I was home, my mom had people that would take her to chemo, and chemo was an hour away from where we lived. So I was working, but she was like, "Don't worry, I have a ride. I can get there. I can get back." But there was one day, and it only happened once, that her rides fell through, and I saw her physically kind of break down to be like, "I need you to take me to chemo." And I said, of course, not a question, called out of work. This is priority. I'm going to do it. So we hop in the car. We're driving through the mountains in Arizona. It's beautiful. We're laughing, kind of lighthearted conversation. But when we get to the treatment center, I back in the parking spot. I go to park. I go to open the door and she grabs my arm. She's like, no, no, no. I got it from here. I said, excuse me. She's like, I got it from here. I got a ride coming in an hour. So you go back home. I'll see you this afternoon. And I kind of looked at her. And she got out the car. She closed my door, and I watched her walk into the center through the double doors and then close behind her. I have no idea what happened. I have no idea what she was going through.
Wow.
She sat in there, if I'm not mistaken, by herself because she did not want me to see that. And I drove home shook for an hour because I'm like, am I wrong for leaving her there? I mean, it's my mother. She told me to do something. I'm going to do it. But
Right.
given the circumstances, like I didn't feel like I should have left her. And years later, I told my dad about that, and he's like, "You did exactly what she wanted you to do. She never wanted you to be anywhere near what she was going through, what was going on in the treatments. Didn't ever want you all to see that. So you dropping her off is what she wanted you to do." So when she ended up flying to Atlanta, all I heard was it was kind of a wellness center. It was set to be all natural treatments, things that almost biblically based that we can try and kind of push the cancer out. And that's what I heard. I heard things were good. I talked to her a few times and she sounded like the woman I'd known my entire life. And speaking of that, I distinctly remember the last time we had a phone call. I was walking out of the market at Oakwood and she's randomly called me and she's like, "Hey, how are you? I'm just checking on you." I'm like, "Honestly, Mom, like I'm good. Thank you for forcing me to come to Oakwood because I had no plans to be there." She filled out my application. She signed my name. She applied for the scholarship as me, and I'm there. So I think you remember me saying, honestly, like, I'm glad you made me come here. I've met some good people. Like, it's been a good time. Mind you, this is now 3 weeks into school, and I heard her go, "Okay, good." And that's the last thing I remember from our conversation was that.
Wow.
And again, looking back at it now, I know exactly what that was. Then I just figured, okay, she's tired. There's a lot happening. She needs her rest. Cool. But yeah, man, it was the treatment piece is something I'm still almost not even wanting to ask because I've kind of been respecting, even in her passing, that she wanted to shield us from that because that's the kind of woman that she was. She carried it herself and she relied on her brothers, my dad, to kind of be there and support it. But as far as me and my sister, she kept us very, very far away from it. And literally, I was just her Lyft driver, essentially. Drop her off, remember about the pickup. So, yeah, man, I really wish I could say more about that because I know a lot of people that are out there that are either in it or they have a family member that's going through it. And there's so many treatment options. There's so many different ways, but it kind of goes back to what you said about how it impacts you. Everyone gets impacted differently. Not all treatments work the same for everybody. So you really just got to figure out really where you are, what stage you're at, how severe it is, and kind of what the options are and explore everything. And just know that it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be fun, but it's something that you at least got to fight for it. At least got to fight. And that's what I can say is to the end, my mom was a fighter, like regardless. So,
Facts,
yeah, man.
Facts, man. So man, to you know the point that you made about your mom wanting to shield you, man, it's crazy. Dude, this connects literally with the last episode, bro. Like my mom was just saying how she got diagnosed, bro, and didn't tell me for months, like months, dude. Until I mean, I think she got diagnosed probably. I don't wanna misquote it or whatever, but it was months. Literally, she waited till the end of the school year, man, to tell me, or the summer break to tell me.
Why my summer like that? Like, tell me into the summer what to expect. Don't summer break starting. It's the first day. Like, oh, by the way, I'm like, oh wow. So the summer's
Yeah,
gone.
dude. Like I came home for like 2 weeks, man, and my mom told me. But her reason, she said in the last episode, she said she didn't tell me because she didn't. She said she didn't want to contaminate the space that I was in. She wanted me to be able to leave it. Like so, I came home. She told me, and she wanted me to be able to leave it there, and not be just flustered where I am. And it just, as you're talking about your mom just kind of shielding you and your sister from the treatment aspect, it's like, parents, they're protective in nature, but it's even like in those moments, bro, it's like she knows her kids, she knows you, she knows your sister, she knows what's going to affect you, you know what I'm saying, and kind of
No,
push
absolutely.
you. So she's like, nah, like, I don't even want y'all to,
Be nowhere near it.
that's, man, wow.
And
Wow.
understand that was probably the hardest part for me to accept, and it took years because can't lie, I was mad. Because I'm like Atlanta and Huntsville, I can do that in 2.5 hours. That's nothing to get there.
Right.
So
Right.
like,
Right.
if you wanted us to be present, we could have been there. At least came on the weekends, popped in to see how you were doing. But like, you distinctly told me, no, your focus is school. I want you focused on school.
Wow.
So don't worry about me. I have what I need, my support system here, which my aunt and uncle were out there. My dad was out there. Like she had her immediate family. Her people that she grew up with were all right there to support her. But again, like you said, parents know their children. And as focused as I was as a student, she's like, this is something that if he sees this, it may rock him beyond an unshakable place. So let's just keep the distance. So again, looking back at it, I understand it. I'm still not happy about it because there's a lot of stuff I never got to say, but I understand where she was coming from as the parent.
This is still 2006, right?
This is 2000. This is literally between May and now we're into late July, early August. So you put her on the plane in Arizona to fly to Atlanta. I want to say 2 days later, me and my dad packed up his truck, packed up my car, and we drove from Arizona to Huntsville for me to start orientation. So this is back to back. Like my mom's sick, but I had to focus on going to school where I never wanted to go, but now I'm being forced to go. So let me prepare myself to deal with what that's going to look like. So yeah, this is literally all within like a 90-day window. I had people that were at Oakwood that started with me around the same time that was just as connected to my family as I was, but they got different information than I was receiving. So this whole time I'm thinking, oh, she's in treatment, she's doing fine, she's good. But the word around from those that were at the time were super close to me that knew my family, they were getting different reports, which again, I didn't find out until much later. So everyone is letting me live in this bubble of she's okay. So I lived those few weeks of Oakwood. No, she's good. Yeah, I know what's going on. I didn't talk. No one knew what was happening. I didn't say anything like, oh, my mom has breast cancer. I just never discussed it because in my mind, again, it's temporary. It's only going to be short term. She's going to beat it again. She's going to be fine. It'll go in remission. It's nothing they really bring up. And that's the bubble I was allowed to live in for weeks until the bubble popped.
So how long was it until you got the news that she passed?
4 weeks from the time I touched at Oakwood. 4 weeks. I went through orientation. I was happy. It was cool. And then I got that phone call.
So how long was it since you talked to her?
Oh, not mistaken, it was like 4 days.
Wow, bro.
So it was like the beginning, like it was almost like coming into like the previous Sabbath. We had talked right before because that was her thing. Sabbath was her time, her peace. So she's like, look, we call check on my kids. And again, I heard that. Okay, good. And then I got a phone call from my dad. And I this is something that is ingrained in my mind for life. I'm on the honors wing in Peterson. I'm in my boy Andrew's room. We're doing calculus homework. And there's a bunch of us. And it was probably about 11:15, and my dad called. And I'm like, he never calls me this late. Like, he's usually asleep because he has a job. He got to work in the morning. It's whatever. But I'm up. And I pick up the phone. I'm like, yo, what's up? And he's just like, hey, are you by yourself? I'm like, nah. But he's like, go to the room by yourself. I'm like, okay. Again, not knowing what's going on. Again, I'm still in my bubble. So this phone call, I'm thinking it's just my dad calling the call. And I stepped in my room, kind of closed the door, and he was like, basically, bud, your mom's gone. And I heard the words, but it did not register. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, she's gone. And I distinctly remember kind of walking out the room, standing up against the wall. My phone dropped, and I just kind of slid down the wall. And I think I must have said something because then I heard the whispers from people that were in the room doing homework with us. They're like, his mom just died. And when I heard those words, like I lost it. I grabbed my car keys and I headed out the dorm. I hit the hallway, went out to the lobby, and I got met by like 5 or 6 guys from the hallway that just kind of embraced me. And that was a lot. Even now thinking about it, I'm like, wow. Mind you, we all 3-4 weeks into school. We were freshmen. A lot of these people I had just met, I never knew before. So for them to feel that way and kind of approach me, it changed a lot. But again, my bubble was burst, and now I'm angry. So I literally was heading out the door. And Oakwood, Peterson, it's curfew. 11 o'clock, you ain't going nowhere. But I remember distinctly, Jason O'Rourke was the RA that was on that night. And he called somebody else to come up and said, watch the desk. He's like, give me your keys. He took my keys and he's like, sign them out to me. And then he walked me to his car and we drove off campus. And he drove me around Huntsville for 2 hours, letting me vent, letting me cry, letting me kind of run through my phone. Because the first thing I did was I called all my people from high school that I went to boarding school with that knew her. Because again, my Oakwood connections weren't there. No one that I really met had a chance to meet my mother. Whenever I went to high school that I just left, they all knew her, loved her. So I called all of them one by one It was like, hey, just so you know, here's what happened, what was going on. I'm just telling you so you hear from me. And I went through that for a good half an hour. And I sounded just like this. You couldn't tell there was really like no real raw emotion, but I was still processing. And when he brought me back to campus, I remember going to my room and passing out. And I woke up like everything was regular. And then it hit me again. And I immediately did what I had seen her do. I went back to work. I was in class that day. And I remember distinctly going into calculus to hand in the homework. And you know, Oakwood, we're a small community.
Small school, man.
By the time I got to class, I'm walking into faces. People are looking because everybody knew. Like, hey, your cousin just told me what happened. You don't have to be in class today. I'm like, no. I'm in class today. I sat through every class. I was on my schedule that day. I then left campus. I went to my job. I was in the buckle in Parkway Place, folding jeans. And everyone, I guess, caught my energy. They're like, yo, you're really quiet today. Like, what's going on? And I literally off the cuff was like, oh, my mom just died. And they started laughing. I was like, no, I'm serious. And everything changed. They're like, why are you here? I'm like, I need to be here. I need to be here doing something in this moment. Because if I'm not, I'm going to lose it. And I carried that energy through the rest of that week, through my flight to Detroit for the memorial. I sat there through her memorial in City Temple Church, sat there as everyone got up and talked. Everyone was comforting each other, and I just had a solid face. And I remember my uncle did a kind of photo tribute and started showing stuff. And there was one picture where it's me, and I was probably 4 or 5, and I'm sitting on my mom's lap on the stairs, and she's just holding me. And in that moment, I realized that feeling was gone. Like, never to be repeated, never to be replicated. There's no way to get that again. And I remember walking out of the church, and I went to the back of the church, slid down the wall, and just lost it. Like, everything I'd been holding in over those days just kind of poured. And man, it's a lot. It was a lot then, it's a lot now. Like I said, it's 14 years later, and I can still go back to being that 17-year-old kid that really and truly, I think it's something people don't really talk about, is when trauma happens, a lot of you gets paused right there in that trauma. So life continues on, you age, you grow, but I tell everybody, look, I'm battling 17-year-old me on a daily basis because he's still waiting for his mom to come out the hospital. He's still there. He's still in that moment. And I'll be 32 next week. And I'm still, part of me is in that moment. And it's never going to go anywhere. I've realized that. That's part of what I had to accept is I'm going to be 17 in this place forever as life continues growing. So what does that look like now? How do I take the 17-year-old me and make him a man fully, help him to see what life looks like on the other side? And that's kind of what I'm still in daily, still processing. So, woo, yeah, man.
Yeah, you get the news that she has passed. You go back to work. You do what you saw your mom do, man. Go to work through it, right? And you have the breakdown where it all just kind of, it can't get held up anymore. It just has to come out. Dude, just kind of talk about, what is that new normal like when you have to go back to your life, but now have it without, your mom, man.
I think the first thing is normal no longer exists. Even calling it a new normal didn't even seem right. It was just a shift. So my mom was my rock. Like, literally, she's who drove me in school. When I brought home A minuses, she was mad that they weren't A pluses. So like, part of me had to dig deep into those life lessons that I was taught from her and find a way to almost apply them as I continued to grow. Because again, the lessons stopped at 17. I stopped hearing her voice. I stopped getting any advice from her then. But the gems she had dropped don't have an expiration date. And I had to get to the point to where I realized how to apply those things. I can't lie, man. Look, I went through part of my going back to work, and what I realized part of hers is it's a deflection. It's a way to not think about it. So My 4 years at Oakwood, I never thought about it. I tried not to
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah.
I think the way I moved and those that were around me, it defined a lot of the things I do. Like, because you remember early on, I wasn't known as tatted. That was part of my coping was
Yeah.
I would go
Yeah.
sit in the chair,
Yeah.
and in those hour to 5 or 6, depending on what I was doing, that's when my mind allowed me to really process what was happening, what had happened, and kind of where I am now. Because the funny story is, most people don't realize my first tattoo was my
Was your
mother's
mom?
idea.
Yep. Yep. I remember. I remember,
And every
bro.
time I tell it, people are like,
I
"What?" I'm like,
remember.
yes, this
I
African
remember.
woman, born
Yeah.
and bred, said,
Yeah.
"Look, I know my son. I know him, and that the stigma that's there doesn't apply to him. So let me support something that know me something to him. As long as I can agree with it, it works." And I don't think she knew what she was starting, but that was again part of my new norm is finding ways to deal with the pain without actually dealing with the pain. And that was probably the biggest mistake I can say that I made early on was I kind of ignored it. I remember Dr. Bushner calling and leaving messages at Peterson for me to call back to go and talk and discuss what was going on. I never
Yeah.
called. I never
Yeah.
did. I said, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to find my
Yeah.
way through it. And through those stumbles, through those bruises, eventually I came out on the other side. And the part of that was something my father told me for the longest time is you're covered by prayer. And those prayers extend beyond your mother's last breath. Understand that.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
a lot of things you ran into, you should have been taken down by, but there was something else that was keeping you from hitting that mark because
Come on,
it
man.
was something bigger that you were destined for. But if we let you to your own devices, you wouldn't be here. Which is why I say when Jason popped in and took my keys, I can tell you right now, had I left that night and been in my car and me driving into that mindset, I wouldn't be here right now. There's no questions asked. I wasn't in the right mindset to understand how to drive a car without it being erratic, how to pay attention to street signs and stoplights and other drivers. I was in a complete daze and fog, and I probably would not have made it back to campus that night. So Jason, to this day, when I wrote my book, I said it. This man saved my life that night without him even knowing it. He stepped in a way that I wasn't prepared for. And I really never had a conversation with him at that time. But
Yeah.
he heard what happened. And again, that's Oakwood for you.
Yeah, bro.
Our worst moments, man,
Yeah.
we come together. I cannot like you. We cannot be friends. We cannot even have ever had a conversation. But if there's something that you need that I can provide, we step in and step up. And he did that
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
ways that's crazy, man. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
Bro.
wild, but I feel like I didn't answer your question. New norm.
No. You did, bro. You,
Okay,
you
okay.
did. I think. I mean, dude, you touched on something that I think that people need to hear, bro. There's no step by step of how to process things.
At
Right?
all.
Nobody says when you get this news, this is what you're supposed to do, and we just kind of cope however we can.
Diving into stuff and not facing dealing with the emotions, especially as Black men, is something that we battle in general. So then you add that it's now the Black woman in your life
Yeah.
as a Black man. That processing is it's lonely, and that's really what it is. It's lonely because there's nothing anybody can say to help you get through it. The condolences, while appreciated, and I'd say this to everyone that's even listening and watching, that anyone that's lost someone, we appreciate the condolences. Me to this day, I have no idea how to respond to that at all. There
Yeah.
were no
Yeah.
words. I'm like, do I say thank
Yeah.
you? Do I say no, it's okay? Usually, I just kind of go like, and I just keep it going because
Yeah.
that's another acknowledgement of what the situation is. And again, it's processing it. And that was my biggest battle throughout. And I think the processing didn't happen literally for me until probably 7, 8 years later.
There's probably somebody that's listening that says, "Hey, man, we're watching. That's lost somebody, um, and they haven't gotten to the spot where they're able to process." What would you say to that person?
Oh, my phrase, because throughout my experience and things that I've done to cope in that process, I've been exposed to people who've been in similar situations, whether it's just losing someone to breast cancer or losing a parent in general. My phrase is, it's okay not to be okay. Too many times we're focused on getting to this quote unquote okay place, but no one can tell you what that place looks like. No one's been to this okay place. It's just in our minds that we have to get there. And I had to take a step back and realize, one, I'm not okay. Two, it's okay, but I'm not okay. I just lost my mother, woman that gave me life, that brought me into this world. I probably will never be okay. I'll survive, I'll live, I'll continue moving forward, but being okay is different than all of that. I'm just pushing on. So that's probably the biggest thing is it's okay not to be okay.
Yeah.
And don't let anyone try to convince you that there's a timeline to getting to okay because there isn't. Again, like I said, my process was 8 years to me even looking over the ledge to see, oh, so that's what peace potentially looks like. That's what processing, that's what facing actually looks like. It took me some time. I had to go through some things. And really and truly, the only reason why I got even to that point was I did something very similar to this. I looked back and I retraced the entire story and I just wrote it down. And I found myself 3 weeks later with pages of what I had been through, what my mother had went through, how that impacted me, and kind of what I wanted to do after that. Like, because a lot of times we hit the trauma and we can't see how the trauma can breathe new life into something else. That's not necessarily for me. I
Yeah.
found that my trauma, that rebirth, turned out to be something for other people that they needed as they were going through. And I never knew that. So outside of it's okay not to be okay, is understand that once you get past that, once you realize that your new normal is no longer there, that the life that you knew is no longer present, open the door to what else is next because something is next. God's not going to remove one thing without preparing you for something else.
Oh, you better preach, bro.
You just have to be willing to walk through that. And that's where people stop is they stop at the trauma. You have to walk through that because on the other side of that, you're now a new person as well. Because I can say, yeah, I'm still the 17-year-old me still exists, but about to be 32-year-old me is different.
Yeah.
He's seeing things differently. He understands. I acknowledge a 17-year-old, but he's still stuck there. I have to move past that and continue to grow, or else I'm now hindering my life and I'm not honoring the memory of her. And that is something else that I would point to as well is understanding you can lose someone that family member, parent, carry them with you. As you can see, my mother stays around me at all times. There's no distance. Those that know me know that her face is on my leg. I've got her name on me. Like she is a part of me as I was a part of her, and I'm still a part of her. So I carry that daily. I carry that weight of who she was around to make sure that, okay, you're Cynthia Jessel Bauer's son? Okay, I know that person. I know that name. I know what to expect from you because of who she was. And a lot of times people crumble under that. For me, it's a challenge. It's to make sure that I keep propelling her name forward as I push my own forward as well.
Yeah, bro, you have navigated through that thing, man. I like kind of what you've been saying, man. Is like nobody knows what normal is. None of us are normal, right? There's no such thing as normal, man. and navigating to what is normal for you. What does that look like for you? What is healthy for you? We just literally recorded a episode, podcast episode with a friend of mine, Keisha. She's a psychologist, and she was talking about healthy sense of self, and she was talking about the first step in having a healthy sense of self is kind of acknowledging what does healthy look like for you. What does that look like for you? Not what other people say it is, but what is that for you? And finding that. And so, listen, we've had some good stuff tonight. Listen, this is my boy Justin, man.
Way back, man.
Listen, man, way back. Dude, I just want to say, man, publicly, bro, like I'm proud of the man that you are, bro. I didn't get an opportunity to meet your mom, but I know that she would be proud of the person, the man, the husband that you are, bro. And dude, just continue, man, to share your story, man. It's inspirational. I know a lot of people are going to gain a whole lot of knowledge, insight, encouragement from this. And we do this, man, just because, we just hope that this encourages somebody, right? If you have somebody who has lost someone, if you've lost someone, if you're going through it, we kind of wanted to just shine a light on this is the perspective of, people who have lost a loved one to breast cancer, so that you got to know you're not by yourself, right? Whether you are a person who has a loved one who is still alive, who's going through it, or whether you're a person who has a loved one who passed from it, you're not by yourself.
It's not the end. And when you can acknowledge that for us as Christians, I believe in that and trust that, it puts a different perspective on it and kind of shifts your light. And honestly, man, I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity. Like, again,
Bro,
I don't do this, this is not what I do at all.
Yeah, for sure. But look, we appreciate it though, man.
No, most def, man. Most def. I appreciate it.
Check us out next Saturday. We'll have another episode of Recharge Worship Survivor Series where we highlight individuals who have either lived through or have lost a loved one to the devastating disease known as breast cancer.
I'm looking forward to what you all are doing. I'm super excited to be a part of what you guys are doing. The mold that you all are building is a powerful thing. I've been watching how you guys have been collaborating. And I just want to applaud you. I'm watching you guys. I'm learning from you. I'm admiring you. So thank you for having me on.
Hey, this is Seth Yolorda.
Yo, what's going on? This is Pastor Noah Weinstein.
This is Pastor Tina Kerger.
I'm Pastor Sean Moss.
This is Pastor JD.
This is Pastor Kimberly Mann.
What's up, everybody? Pierre Quinn here, and you are watching Recharge.
Recharge.
Recharge. Recharge.
Recharge.
Recharge.
Recharge.
Recharge. Recharge.
Recharge.
Recharge. Recharge.
Recharge. You are watching Recharge Worship.